I'll go live for a few more minutes just to finish up questions. I know they were kind of coming to a close. I'll see if you guys join again. I'll see if you guys join again. I was like, I'll go live for like a couple more minutes because I know questions were coming to a close and I just got cut off. But if your temperatures are consistently between 96 to 97, that's just chronically low, right? Like, it's fine if you sometimes take your temperature at 6 and sometimes take your temperature at 8. You kind of just want to take your waking temperature. I mean, obviously it's better to be more consistent with taking your temperature, but at the end of the day, like, you just want to take it when you wake up to see where you're at. But if you're consistently low, I mean, 96 to 97 is metabolically suppressed for sure. You want to be like at 97.8 or above when you wake up. So, you know, that's why we start tracking our metabolic markers. Miss Erica is my client. So, you know, it's like, you know, that's why I start you tracking with metabolic markers, because it's like, you know, a lot of us are coming to, you know, you guys are coming to me as your nutritionist or something, and you're like, you know, what's going on? I can't lose weight. And I'm just like, I need to know, like, if your I don't know, you know, like, is your thyroid suppressed? And so we start to track your heat production because that's showing your cellular metabolism. It's like, oh, we're starting to see things come in very, very low. So we know, like, oh, metabolism's been suppressed for quite some time. And so we can start to use temperatures and pulses to see how exercise is affecting us or how our food is affecting us, which gives us empowerment, right? Because we can directly see how something is it causing me to burn or is it causing me to store? You can immediately see it just through your temps and pulse. So that's why I like when my ladies first come to me, I just have them to start getting the habits of tracking, and then we start to really decipher it once we get a pattern, because it's really just about tracking your body's patterns and seeing what's going on. What all certifications do you have? Okay, so I know I get this question quite some time. So I have a clinical nutrition or certified nutritionist consultant certification, which was my first training, and I didn't really love it. Like, I wouldn't recommend it. I'm not like someone that's like, oh, it was my favorite thing. Like, it got the job done. I'm a nutritionist, but at the same time, like, I didn't really learn anything that I was like, oh my gosh, this is gonna stick. Like, it was very traditional in the way that it taught. And so I'm like, honestly, I wouldn't recommend it. But the two that I have taken that I really loved was Institute for Integrative Nutrition. So I did go through their health coaching program, and not necessarily for the health information. Honestly, like, they teach very, you know, very like health and wellness with the health and wellness fad world. They teach a wide variety of nutritional theories, which is really wonderful because they're not biased. They are kind of biased for plant-based, but at the end of the day, they try to like expose you to all types of diets and all types of primary foods, they call them, which is like, you know, mind-body tools, and they really prep you for being a business owner, which is really wonderful. So I really like that part for the coaching part. They really teach you how to be a good listener. They teach you how to coach, because being really good on the clinical side is one thing. Like, you know, being able to look at a lab or decipher someone's symptoms and say, this is what we got to do, is one thing. But on the other hand, getting them to do it is a whole separate issue. Having them feel comfortable with you and trust you and feel accountable to you, that takes a whole different set of skills. And so it's important. Like, a lot of people are like, well, I got certified as a holistic nutritionist, what do I do next? And I'm like, you know, you got to start working with people. You got to start getting experience and seeing how that works. And then I also went through the functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner training. So functional diagnostic nutrition is very on the clinical side. They allow you to use specific lab tests to utilize if you want in your practice, but they really teach you hormones. They teach you the clinical side. They teach you the functional side, and it lays a good foundation. But I'll be honest with you guys, a lot of my information comes from my own personal research. I used my education as a very baseline, but I didn't rely on it. It's not a crutch to me. I probably, you know, I've built a huge mountain on the foundation that was my certification, and I already had a lot of knowledge before I went into it, and so it kind of, some of the stuff connected the dots further for me and then allowed me to continue my education. But I always say you only need one certification to go start helping people, and don't let, you know, your lack of certifications or you feel like, oh, my lack of education is holding me back. No, you have to find your passion. You have to find what you're good at and what you really like, you get. Like, for me, hormones, like, I just get them. Like, to me, I see the picture and it's just like boom, 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 boom. It comes naturally. And it partially comes naturally because I've done the time, I've done the research, I've put it all together in my head, and I've thought outside the box. And that's what's going to get you to be the best practitioner possible, is quote unquote, I don't mean like breaking the rules, like being reckless, but I mean always asking why and never taking somebody's straight answer as an answer. Like when people tell me something like, oh, it's happening because of this, but I'm like in my gut, like, that doesn't really make any sense to me. But yeah, I'm gonna go look at that further. And usually when I do that, I'm like, oh, they're wrong, you know? Or, oh, it's happening because of this, and they gave me half of the story. And so I never take anybody's advice. I always am I'm a questioner. I'm a questioner, that's my type. I'm a person that just questions everything, and I'm also very like rebel tendencies. Like I'm just a little bit rebellious. So if somebody tells me it's gonna be one thing, I'm gonna question the heck out of it, and then I'm also gonna probably be like, I'm probably not going to do it just because you told me to do it. But at the end of the day, it's like one of those things where you have to use your education as a baseline, and then you have to do your own work and become a practitioner. And experience is the best teacher, you guys. I mean, you never be reckless, but at the same time, like, you do have to just start working with somebody. Like, I didn't always specialize in hormones. I just worked with anyone and everyone that would work with me. I actually worked with a lot of seniors, for a very long time before I started working with women with hormones. Lots of older people changing their diet, changing their lifestyle, which was actually the hardest thing for me, because they've been doing things a certain way for so long. And so like, I didn't necessarily love working with older people. I loved them, but that wasn't like what I was passionate about. But it was a great teacher, and it taught me how to get people to change their habits, and taught me that, yeah, it's one thing to tell someone like, this is the protocol that you need to be on, but it's another thing to like have them actually slowly, gradually make those changes. People and protocols don't necessarily mix, and so we have to kind of find a fine balance. But yeah, that's all the certifications I have. I'm also a certified personal trainer, so that's where I started. I started as a certified personal trainer, and it kind of morphed because I saw that the calories in, calories out thing didn't really work. And so like it caused me to look a lot deeper into hormones. And so I worked a lot with like older, like perimenopausal and menopausal women. That was like my main personal training clients. And so I saw like they were over-exercising, and they weren't really seeing weight loss, and their metabolisms were really slow. And so that's when I like started diving into hormones more. And then I started working a lot with senior citizens, which also had a lot of like slow metabolisms. And then, you know, for me, it like prepared me for working with women. So it took me a while to find my sweet spot. And guys, I've been doing this for pushing like 5 or 6 years now, and I'm just kind of like starting to see things like really pick up, and finally found my groove and my jam and what I really love. And I knew that I was passionate about what I do, but I didn't feel passionate about the people that I was working with until I kind of find women and hormones and PCOS and that kind of thing, and metabolism, thyroid. And so just keep going, you guys. Get that certification, and then just use experience as your teacher. Never stop learning, never stop asking why, and just keep going in one direction. And you're gonna make a million mistakes before you land on something correct. Like, that's just how it is. That'll always be how it is. I oil cleanse my face with hemp seed oil. Don't consume it. Is that a problem? It's one of those things where if you're seeing a lot of sun damage happen, then I would be careful with it. Because remember, like I said in my last live, PUFAs they go rancid in the sun. They're very sensitive to light and heat. And so a lot of women that put these seed oils on their faces, they're not realizing that these seed oils are actually like causing photo aging. But if you don't see that, and you feel like your skin is really good, there's no reason to mess with it. Love you, Jess. Love you, Erica. Thanks for being here. Erica is just like, she has like the best personality. Like every time, like I had a session with her, and I'm like, I can't wait to have another session with her, because she's just so like fun and upbeat. Is it possible to get my period consistently every month but still not ovulate? My temperature every morning is between 96.8 and 97.3. Well, it's like one of those things where if you have like a mid cycle spike, even if you're like going from 96.8 to 97.3, and then like consistently saying more around 97.3, that could be an ovulation. Very possibly could. But like, it is possible for you to have a monthly cycle without ovulating. There is such a thing as anovulatory cycles. Another thing that happens with women who are like seeing their cycles slowly return, which I know yours has kind of been like, you've been getting it back on schedule. You can kind of see like sporadically having anovulatory cycles. So you're, remember that cycling is not like on or off. Like, you're not just like, I'm ovulating every month or I'm not. Sometimes there are women that like will ovulate 2 months in a row and then 2 cycles in a row and then miss one. Or they'll see like, oh, I'm ovulating 2 cycles or 3 cycles and then I'm missing one. Or I'm missing 2 and then I'm ovulating once. And so, that's why you just want to track. But it is possible to get a period without ovulation, because remember, estrogen is what's responsible for thickening the uterine lining. And you can still get your uterine lining thick without actually ovulating. And progesterone is what's thinning it. So the health of your period is also a great indicator if you're ovulating. If you're having really lengthy periods that are very heavy and clotty, and they just are not like a normal, healthful period, then sometimes it can be, okay, maybe I'm not ovulating. But sometimes you'll get like such a little temperature spike or such a weak one that you won't catch it. So it is possible that you're kind of missing that spike too. Sometimes what happens is women aren't sticking the thermometer deep enough into that hot pocket underneath their tongue. Like, that weird like line thingy in between your tongue? You gotta stick it into the pocket, like into one of the corners underneath, and you gotta like kind of get it deep in there. Or if you're taking your pit temperature, you gotta kind of like stick it in the pit, not like just kind of like pop it in there. So that's like something that I would maybe mess around with. But if you're like, girl, mine are just low across the board, then you could be having an anovulatory cycle. But it is weird because I know your period's been kind of like getting more and more regular. So just like would be weird, very weird to me if you weren't going back to ovulating at all. Recommended ways to lengthen the luteal phase. Yeah, so what's happening right now, if you're having like a longer follicular phase, then your goal is not actually to lengthen the luteal phase, but to shorten the follicular phase. And what's happening with the shortened follicular phase is that, or a longer follicular phase, is that there's some kind of stress that's keeping you from ovulating. And it's not necessarily like, some women will ovulate later on in the cycle, that's fine, but then you should see your luteal phase last like 11 to 14 days around that. You shouldn't see like a luteal phase lasting like 4 to 6 days. If that's the case, like your corpus luteum itself, that gland that's making you progesterone, or your ovary, is probably doesn't probably have enough nutrients, or your body's feeling stressed, like I said, so the stress during the follicular phase. So some women are, like, alcohol's not your friend really ever. I can't think of like a time in the cycle where I'm like, oh yeah, that's a great time to drink alcohol. Like, because when you're menstruating, not a good time. And then when you're in your follicular phase, you're preparing for ovulation, that's not a good time. And then during your luteal phase, you're preparing for a good period, and so you want to support liver detoxification, and so that's not a good time. And so it's like, I always say like, there's really not a good time in your cycle to be drinking alcohol. So if you're trying to really heal, make sure you're not drinking alcohol. And then if that's not a problem or not a thing for you, then the next thing is make sure you're getting enough minerals. Calcium, magnesium, potassium, and sodium are really important. Make sure you're getting enough protein, just like simply enough protein. 100 grams per day, around there, depending on your body weight, but usually around 100 is good for liver function and just kind of de-stressing. Like, remember that protein is directly pro-thyroid. This is why a lot of times vegans and vegetarians have a very low body temperature, is because it's very difficult to digest the proteins from plant foods, and they're not eating enough protein. And then make sure you're getting enough carbohydrates during the follicular phase, just balanced meals in general. Are you under eating or over exercising? Are you not sleeping enough? Are you really stressed out? Are you in a really toxic environment, like a really negative environment that you hate? Look at the stressors during the follicular phase, which is before ovulation, and see what maybe could be preventing ovulation from coming sooner. And then also make sure you're nourishing your body and really focusing on nutrient-dense foods, so that the corpus luteum has what it needs to really sustain your progesterone levels. Because what's happening is when the luteal phase is short, your corpus luteum is not lasting a full 11 to 14 days. It's kind of being reabsorbed by the body. And that sudden drop in progesterone is what brings on a bleed. So that's why, any kind of sudden drop in hormones can really cause the uterine lining to shed. And so that's what actually brings on a period. Thank you for saying that. I don't have a degree in nutrition, but I'm passionate about learning about it. You're a role model and a motivation for me to keep going on this healing journey. I'm so glad. I don't have a degree in nutrition either. I actually got a degree in business. And while I was getting my degree in business, I was very, very sick. And so at one point, I really wanted to switch to pre-med, but it was already kind of late, and I was like, I'm so exhausted, right? Like, I don't even want to, I just want to finish school. I want to graduate. So I finished at that, but I am thinking about going back and getting a master's at some point, but I don't really think you need it, you guys. At the end of the day, like, as long as you have an education and you're being responsible about making sure that you're constantly learning and you have a foundation, you can truly help people, and you're not going beyond your scope of practice, you're not, doing things you shouldn't be doing, then you truly can help people. And honestly, most people just need help with the basics. They need help with, sleeping more and exercising less harshly and treating their body better and, cleaning up their the toxins in their life, cleaning up their air, their water, eating better, eating more balanced. A lot of people are chugging coffee on an empty stomach in the morning and not eating. People really need the basics, and you'll see a lot of changes in their health just by doing the basics. A lot of times we think you need all these weird protocols and this and that, but I don't really use a lot of things that are way out there. I use the basics because most of the time that people are coming to me, they need the basics. They need to get out in the sun, and they need to get some fresh air, and they need to walk, and they need to move their body, and they just need to take care of themselves. So don't let your own expectations of what you think you need to be a good practitioner keep you in the way from the things you actually need to be a good practitioner, which is the passion and the desire to help people. Tips for hair loss, also shrinking a thyroid goiter. Well, usually a thyroid goiter is due to the thyroid feeling like it has to produce. So a lot of times, there have been multiple clients that actually go on a thyroid medication and they actually see their goiter shrink. But, naturally, remember that estrogen is inflammatory, pesticides, so making sure you're eating really organic, and that includes what you're putting on your skin. Remember, any kind of heavy metal or pesticides or estrogen just loves the thyroid gland because it's that fatty tissue, and it can kind of swell and inflame the thyroid. And then for hair loss, it's one of those things, it's such a deeper issue. It's not a topical thing. It's not something that's just happening because you need to take more biotin. It's a stress issue, you guys. Remember, your hair follicles are like mini organs. They have a high need for nutrients, a high need for progesterone, a high need for T3, which is that converted thyroid hormone. Remember, your thyroid makes T4, which gets converted into T3 in the liver and the gut. And so, you got to make sure you have adequate T3 levels, especially if your hair is falling out. And then you need to also make sure you're getting enough nutrients. This is why a lot of people see their hair fall out on a low carb diet, because your hair follicles have a lot of need for glucose. You also need to make sure you're getting adequate levels of protein, at least 100 grams a day. And then just enough saturated fats, or the right types of fats. How will I know if I'm on too much thyroid medication? Usually if your doctor is putting you on NDT, they'll test you every 3 months, but you should know by you'll feel anxiety, you'll feel too hot, you'll feel heart palpitations, people feel weird. And remember, you guys, that taking thyroid is a responsibility. You can't take thyroid without increasing the amount of fuel you're intaking, because by taking thyroid, you are increasing the metabolic rate. And if you're going to increase your metabolism, but you're not going to give your metabolism fuel, what is going to happen? You're going to have to break down your own tissue to make your own fuel. And so a lot of people feel really bad when they start taking natural desiccated thyroid, and their doctor doesn't remind them, hey, you kind of have to eat a little bit more, or you're going to feel weird, or, your metabolism is increasing. You have to actually, cater to a sped up metabolism. So you would know by just, you don't feel like yourself. A lot of women's hormones focus is on estrogen and progesterone, but what about testosterone? Do those levels mess things up too? Yeah, high testosterone can be an issue for women. It can cause androgenic like symptoms, you know, sometimes acne and like facial hair growth or body hair growth. It can cause hair loss on the head, or low testosterone can cause like low libido. You can feel very depressed. A lot of women with low testosterone will feel depressed, or they'll just feel like me, like they just kind of feel a lack of drive. Because remember, like, testosterone is that more, I guess, androgenic style of hormone where it's like that go, go, go. It's going to give you that more masculine energy. You're going to have a lot more feelings of direction and drive. And so, yes, your testosterone levels matter. You don't want them to be too high and you don't want them to be too low. You just want them to be good. But estrogen and progesterone are the main ones we're concerned with because those are the main power players in the female body, for sure. But looks like questions are coming to a close. I've already been live for like 2.5 hours, so I'm not going to keep you guys longer. But I appreciate you guys for being here. I'm going to talk about on my stories tomorrow, I'm going to talk about how over-exercising or exercise in general in the wrong way can suppress your metabolism, and how to know how much exercise is good, how to kind of track that, and to find your sweet spot with exercise. That's going to be tomorrow's story. And then Friday's story, I think I wrote down, is going to be on acne. And I do go live on Fridays, so I'll be live at 9 a.m. like always. But I'm definitely trying to like go through my stories, especially my older stories, and actually redo a lot of them. So with updated information, just to talk about them again, to remind you of the things that are important. And I have a lot of more new followers, so we want to refresh them on the things that are important. So just keep an eye out for that. I will be working through my stories pretty regularly and updating them and getting new story highlights up for you. But I love you. Thank you for joining me. I hope you have a wonderful night, and I'll talk soon.